Welcome to The Third Story. I'm your host, Leo Sidran. Today's conversation features singer, songwriter, and occasional actress, Sophie Auster. We had a lovely chat a few weeks ago. I'm happy to share it with you today. Her new album, Next Time, recently came out. Feel free to visit third-story.com for all your Third Story podcast needs. You can check out all the past episodes, sign up, subscribe, get in touch, get involved. There's also a link there to the Patreon page, patreon.com/thirdstorypodcast, where you can get involved on a deeper level. While you're there, you can also check out a curated Spotify playlist and some YouTube links relevant to today's conversation. I'll be back soon with another great conversation. Until then, please enjoy this episode with the lovely and talented Sophie Auster. Sophie Auster. You've just tagged my dog on Instagram.
Yes. We've
just only met, and already you've fallen in love with my dog and threatened to steal her.
Yes.
You're just in a Park Slope house right now.
It's true. I could sneak her off to where I grew up.
Which is?
In Park Slope.
I see. So you are a Park Slope kid, right?
Yes. I left when I went to college, and then I lived at school. And then after I graduated, I betrayed Brooklyn, and I moved into the city.
Yes. You are not only a child of Brooklyn, but a child of literary Brooklyn. Both of your parents are writers. Your father is the writer Paul Auster, and your mother is the writer Siri Hustvedt. What did writing mean to you when you were growing up? What did it look like to you?
Well, it was, natural, right? You kind of accept the circumstances that you're born into. I had two parents who worked in their house, so it was, they were there a lot. And I found it funny that other kids' parents went to off to work every day. But that's funny. They don't work at home, and it was quite normal. I mean, I had a pretty normal, stable childhood. I was encouraged to pursue whatever I wanted to pursue. I wasn't called crazy for wanting to be an artist because I had two artist parents who had made a successful career out of it. And I think that is, something that helped me on this path because I was encouraged. And I think anyone who does something out of the box needs that encouragement and that push because it's hard enough, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't really want naysayers along the way that are in your inner circle. So to have that was really, I think, important for me.
When I interviewed Michael Hurst from the band One Ring Zero, in researching that interview, I discovered that he and his bandmate Josh, who were both based in Park Slope at the time, had made an album with you when you were still in high school.
That project happened, I met Mike and Josh because they were doing a project using writers' lyrics for their album.
Yep.
And I don't know, I was obviously living at home. I was a kid, so I was around a lot. And
they were using some of your dad's lyrics for their
songs.
And
then they asked, I must have said something like, well, I sang, and they said, okay, well, why don't you come to our studio and we can, see if you really sing. And I did. And they were like, oh, this is great. Maybe we could do something together. And we kind of took that as we took their original idea from the last record and applied it to doing something with me, which was very fun. And it wasn't for any purpose other than to have a studio experience, do a project because it was fun. And that was it. And then by a weird chain of events, the album landed in someone's lap and it was put out in Europe under a label and independently in the US. And it was just one of those really fluke kind of things.
Yeah.
It was a kind of side project, fun collaboration. And then it kind of was the beginning of like my professional life. And it was a kind of a stepping stone and something I bounced off of.
Right.
I was 16. So
when you met the guys from One Ring Zero and you told them that you sing and one thing led to another, I mean, what were you singing? What were you into? Who were you then?
Well, I was involved in a lot of like school things, and then I was doing theater and performances, and I was also singing jazz standards at, little clubs and stuff like this. So, I was toying with all these ideas of performing, and I had done it very rigorously, again, kind of in a school way, or pursuing it after school. And I was doing music lessons, and I was really kind of surrounded by all this stuff. But I wasn't sure how I was going to pursue it necessarily. I thought maybe I will be just a singer, right? So maybe I will take this ambitions to the stage, and then I'll be a singing kind of actress, or I don't know. I had always written poetry, but I hadn't really written songs at that time. Right. So it was kind of trying to figure out how to tie all these kind of aspirations together. And so the experience of doing that record helped kind of tie everything together. And I thought, okay, no, I should be a songwriter. I should take these things and put them together. And I think also that the fact that I had only written 2 songs on that record with the One Ring Zero guys kind of pushed me to speak from my own perspective. Yeah.
When you started writing your own songs, I know you said you wrote those 2 songs on the first record, then you realized you wanted to be a songwriter. What was the process of becoming a writer, a songwriter like?
Well, I think it was kind of natural because I had been writing a lot of poetry. So I had already been kind of working in this short form way. And to me, wasn't a really big stretch to turn some of these poems or ideas that I had into fitting with, music. So I think it was the challenge, though, to just kind of not be scared, and kind of go for it and have the confidence to do it.
It's interesting you say that. In the press release for your record, they quote you as talking about kind of overcoming some kind of those hang-ups, those kinds of fears, creative fears. This isn't the first record that you made of your own songs, but this record represents some kind of a passage through that forest of overcoming that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I think there was a shift, and I think you do something enough and that all of a sudden there is this kind of turn and you feel like you have the reins kind of firmly in your hand all of a sudden, and you're not blind grasping around in the dark, trying to put things together. Sometimes it's still like that, but I definitely feel freer in my work, and I think that just comes from doing it for a long time now, actually.
What are the specific fears? Just the fears that it's not good, or that you're not sure if what are the hang-ups?
Well, I think specifically, for example, like with this record, I think I would get kind of nervous in the studio. Time limitations, budget, all these things kind of hang over you when you go into a professional recording studio and there's a big clock. And I think that was a kind of intimidating factor for me. And this record taught me also that I prefer to work in like a home studio environment where there are no time limitations, where I can just kind of go around the clock and do whatever I want when I'm inspired and not work if I'm not. And I think that lifted like a lot of pressure off of me. And I figured, I was like, okay, this is what works for me, and that's important to find, because you have to say what doesn't, right? First, you go like, well, I don't like this and this doesn't really work for me. So now I'm going to try to shift and find where it does. So the working environment was a big thing. And then, I don't know, kind of just trusting my instincts more and trusting that, the songs that I was writing were good enough. And it definitely took a long time. And I scrapped a lot of work in the process of going. I went in and recorded a whole other record before I made this record. And then I thought, oh my God, I don't like it. It sucks. So I scrapped it and I started again. And I really did think that actually the reason why I didn't like it was, there was a couple factors, but I just thought the songs weren't that strong. And so I had to start over. Was
that little seed there the whole time while you were making the record? I mean, like at what point do you confront the work and say, I don't like this work? Obviously, making a record is like a lot of work. So you have a lot of opportunities along the way to sort of like accept or reject the work.
Totally.
What exactly happens that you listen and say, you know what, no?
I think I got really excited to go in and start working. And I was in New York and there was this idea to like make it really fast, make the record in like a couple weeks and put it out and do everything really bang, bang, bang. And I thought, that idea could really work, why not? But I realized that it just wasn't, I don't know, my songs were they all felt a little half done. Like some of them didn't feel like finished works. And I started realizing this once we started talking about production and coming up with parts. And I just thought, oh God, I need to go back to the drawing board. Like, I wouldn't listen to this. I don't like this. And I thought, God, it's such a risk to put anything out anyway, right? People are always going to have something to say about it. So you better be able to stand behind your own work. And if I'm going to put out something that I don't believe in, then I can't do that. I mean, there's no point, right? So I had to go back, keep writing, drag the process out a bit, but good things take time, and I had to do that for myself, and I'm happy I did because I came to a place where I can stand behind the work, and I think, it's something that I'm proud of, for better or for worse, So for me, it was an important step.
You had made basically 2 records before that in New York.
Yeah. So I made an EP called Red Weather, and then I made a full-length album called Dogs and Men. And they were independently released, and I toured them a bit and then started this process.
How do you think your sound, your writing, your whole approach evolved over that process?
I think there was a time where I felt like I needed collaboration a lot more. There's a lot of amazing songwriters out there, right? So I would kind of seek out the people in my corner and be like, what do you think of this? And of course, everyone has an opinion. Everyone has their own musical style. And so what happened, it would kind of lead to collaborations. Even if I had written like most of the song or whatever, then someone would come in and put in their own, 2 cents, and maybe things would shift a little bit or whatever. And I stopped doing that. I kind of just was like, this is a good song and I'm happy with it. Yeah. And I stopped kind of asking around for, I guess permission and also advice, because I was maybe not as confident. And I think that I had to learn that confidence and how to, really believe in myself and my abilities. And I think that is a good thing. And I think that helped me. Eventually
you hear this record and you find out that it was produced by this Swedish guy, Tor Johansson.
Yeah.
And you write to Tor Johansson.
So a friend of mine, Nicole Atkins, who's a singer and songwriter, is a really cool girl. And she had worked with Tor, I think, on 2 albums. And I was searching for a kind of bigger sound, and I wanted something kind of bold, and I really liked the production on her last record, and I had been listening to it a lot, and I was like, well, maybe I should call Nicole. And so I did, and she's like, oh, you'll love Tor. He's great. Like, you should do it. I'll put you in touch. So I emailed him. He was very interested. He said, oh, I'm not working with bands anymore. I only want to work with singer-songwriters. It's more fun for me, and it's less hassle because it's one-on-one, basically. So we started on a kind of 2-song trial. I sent him all my demos, which were a lot, and he and I together kind of sifted through, and he said, let's start with this demo, and I will put some production on it as a test, and you see what you think. Came back, and I was like, whoa, wow. This is not what I was envisioning, but I like it. And it was kind of took it into a place that I wasn't expecting. And so I think that he did that a lot for the record. He took things that I maybe wasn't able to articulate and push the boundaries a bit. And I really liked it. And he was, he pushed me, but he also listened. And so we had a very good working relationship together when I ultimately did go and record the record. But it was good, too. It was because, I kind of jumped into the process earlier. And so this was a good kind of like dip your toe in, see if it's working. And it was. And I was like, okay, cool. I think I can jump in now. The waters feels okay.
So when you said it wasn't what you were expecting, what were you expecting?
I don't know. I think that it's just, when you it's just you writing a song, right? And it's just you on your guitar, and that's it. And then someone has a kind of big vision for the song that really like opened up into this kind of like banger, you know? I was like, oh, wow. But I liked it. I really did. It's just, I didn't even know how to, I guess, envision the production at that time. And I liked it. You know, also we took everything off of guitar and put it on piano. So it was just shifting and moving. And I thought that was a really good approach. And he helped kind of rein me in a bit.
Had you met in person before you went to Sweden to work on the record?
No.
He's in Malmo, is that where he is?
Yeah, that's where he is for the summer. He built a studio on his friend's farm. And so we recorded in the house and then on this kind of makeshift studio, like bus.
He made some of the most important records for me when I was coming up. The Cardigans records, the 8 Camp records.
Yeah.
Emiliana Torini's record.
Yeah.
Really unbelievable production. I actually didn't put it all together how many of those records he had done until I listened to yours and then went back and saw what he's done. And I realized that a lot of times when I talk about the Swedish production that I like, it's actually his production that I'm talking about. I mean, I've just often wondered, like, why do the Swedes just
what
have
magic
a handle
do they have,
on it?
right?
Yeah.
You know, I think, again, going back to like the studio environment, it was a really relaxed working. It was just very scenic also.
Yeah.
I mean, like there was cows and that was it. And I was like, wow, this is the way to make an album, is kind of in a serene environment where all you do is live, breathe the music that you're doing. And he just wanted me to sing and sing and sing and sing and sing. And we sang morning, noon, and night. Also, I thought this was very clever. You know, I would sometimes record the verses in the morning because we lowered things too. We kind of got into my lower range on this record, which I think is good. And I realized sometimes that I've been writing songs a little high. And I do. I think that the personality comes out more in my lower range. So I thought that was a brilliant idea. But some of the really low verses were actually a little hard for me to hit as my voice warmed up during the day. So we'd do those kind of gravelly verses right when I woke up, which is very funny. And then the choruses at night.
So what do you do live? Do you have to move the keys to be able to get down there live?
No, I figured it out. You know, it's just sometimes when you're working on something for the first time in the process, it's it feels like a little unreachable. Yeah. And then you learn how to do it.
And so how long were you there?
There were 2 trips. So altogether, I must have done it in about, I don't know, over a month or so. We had local people, musicians. And so I was in the studio with them and Tor. But we had kind of, you know, put this, like the almost like markers of the, you know, of the production. So I knew what was going to be happening. And then in my absence, some of that was recorded. And
the two of you made really interesting choices, right? Like the one thing that seems to mark the record is this brass element.
Yeah.
And a lot of low brass.
Yeah. I had really thought about brass on the record already.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I did have a spaghetti Western kind of idea in mind. You know, I wasn't completely wandering around blind.
Yeah.
You know, I did have some ideas of where I wanted to go. I didn't know how it was, you know, exactly going to be played out, but I did have a kind of theme in my mind. And
so tell me about that.
You know, I wanted to capture some of the, obviously there are some more directly heartfelt things on the record, but there is a real like sense of humor, and there's something kind of sarcastic about a lot of these songs that I've written. You know, there's layers of humor and irony, and I wanted the production to reflect that, you know. And so I thought that those production choices were like right up my alley.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So number one, you sort of envisioned, you say spaghetti Western, there's something kind of cinematic. Some of the songs are like very cinematic. But also, let's talk about the irony in the lyrics a little bit and where you're seeing that. Because there is a question that comes up when you listen to it, like, is this autobiography? Is this fiction? You know, I read that your first single, Mexico, is inspired by a film that you saw. Yeah. But then there are others that feel like you could be talking about yourself. Yeah. There's a lot of, it's not woman scorned exactly, but there's a lot of kind of this relationship with either an aloof or a larger-than-life man or a man that's going to do you wrong.
Yeah.
There's some of that stuff happening.
Totally, yeah.
So tell me about where you're coming from on the record.
Well, I think that, the crux of the record really is about, archetypes and like archetypal female characters and archetypal male characters, right? So you have a song like Dollar Man where it's almost like a kind of Me Too movement song, right? So you have the Harvey Weinstein kind of character, right? And then you have the young girl who's kind of standing up for herself and not going to go down that road. But it's a power play, right? It's all about abuse of power and promising someone the world if they'll sleep with you. I wanted to talk about that. And of course, it all comes from me. They're all like, some things are more personal to me, but it was all using these ideas and kind of social commentary to just draw out and expand on my own experiences that I've had. So sometimes, you embellish, right? It's taking your own experience and making it much wilder, right? For creative purposes. But I think that I was really interested in these roles that people play in different scenarios. And, you have in another song, Medications, you have the crazy off her meds, woman who's about to like go shoot down some guy, So that's another kind of playing with these, archetypes and social cliches as well and poking fun at it. Of it, a bit. I mean, it's all me, I feel. It's all kind of different sides to myself. And I think that what's great, too, about the freedom of creativity, really, is that you get to try on all these different characters, right? And so I think even in the performances, too, I'm able to release a kind of, defiant and more aggressive side of myself, which I'm not a very aggressive person in my normal life. And so I really find this a kind of cathartic experience to try on all these different kind of costumes and
what I think is a bit unexpected about hearing you talk about the level of irony in the writing? You have a big voice.
Yeah.
And you're a powerful singer.
Yeah.
There's nothing particularly cheeky in your delivery that says that I'm in on the joke. You know? And also, your singing is like almost out of another era. I mean, sometimes it feels very 70s. There's a lot of it kind of very old school singing approach in it.
Yeah. I don't really know how to sing like a contemporary person. I hear these voices and I'm like, and they're almost interchangeable. Like they came from the same school of, I don't know, they all listened to the same record and that's how they sang.
Right.
And I'm not disparaging anyone. It doesn't come naturally to me to sing like that. And so it's probably also because I grew up singing jazz and I listened to Carole King and I, was...
Yeah, what did you listen to?
Well, when I was younger, it was all female singers for me, really. I was listening to Bessie Smith and Carole King and Nina Simone and Roberta Flack, Sarah Vaughan, Peggy Lee. I love Peggy Lee. Peggy Lee we listened to for this record as well. That's what I grew up liking. I mean, I will admit that my first serious love at 7 was Neil Sedaka, which I find very funny. But yeah, it was a different school of like, I wasn't really listening to the Spice Girls.
Right.
I have nothing against the Spice Girls though. But yeah, it was what I gravitated towards. So I kind of wanted to, on this record, to have it be a bit of an ode to those women who had inspired me. And I think it is feels kind of 70s.
I know that you were recently in Spain doing some early promotion for the new record, and I noticed that our mutual friend Leonor Watling from the band Marlango in Madrid was excited that you were there, and she was tweeting about it.
Oh my God, you know them.
Yeah, how did you connect with her?
Through Pedro Almodovar.
Uh-huh.
He introduced us, and Leonor is so sweet and fun. We really drunkenly sang at a bar in Madrid. Someone has a video somewhere, but it's remarkable that we didn't get kicked out.
And how did you meet the great Spanish film director Pedro Almodovar?
What is the connection? He's friends with my family, and I think, I've known him since I was young, 14 or something. So and somehow we connected, and Leonor and I became friends. So
it sounds like you had a pretty extraordinary childhood with artists of this caliber all around you and a part of your life.
Sure. I mean, I think that, artists are, everywhere. And I don't know. I mean, it was interesting to, I guess when I was really little, you don't know who anybody is. I mean, you don't have an awareness of what, you just know if you have a connection with someone or not a connection, right? But yeah, I mean, I think, I personally love Pedro's movies, and he's one of my favorite directors. So I was very well aware of who he was. So it wasn't that I'm flippant about it. I, think he's like a hero and a very kind person. But the connection, I don't know where it began, but he is, friends with my parents, who also have traveled the world and know a lot of people.
One of the things that I liked finding out about your mother is that she's from Minnesota. I'm from Wisconsin originally.
Okay. We go every year.
Do you?
Yeah, for Christmas, yeah.
You spend Christmas in Minnesota every year?
Yeah, well, I mean, it changed. It shifted as the family. My grandfather died. My grandmother moved out of the family house and into a home. But yes, we have the celebration in Christmas in Brooklyn. And then a couple days later, we go to Minnesota. And we pile into the Archer House in Northfield. And we do it every year in the below, zero. There's something nice about being like holed up in a warm, cozy place where it's snowing outside. And my mom has 3 sisters, so it's a big family.
And are they all still there?
No. 1 is there and 2 are also in New York. So 3 out of 4.
Was there some Midwestern aspect to your mom's point of view at home? And do you feel connected to that part of the world?
Yeah, I think what I felt strongly was the kind of Scandinavian influence. My grandparents, my grandmother is Norwegian. She was born in Bergen. And then my grandfather was actually born in the States, but his first language was Norwegian. Mm-hmm. So he grew up on a rural farm in Minnesota. We celebrate the Scandinavian Christmas. So I don't know if you've seen the Bergman movie Fanny and Alexander, but if you want to know what a Scandinavian Christmas looks like, you can watch that movie in the kind of extreme way. It's a bit bigger than what we do, but, we light candles on a tree, we hold hands, we sing in Norwegian. 3 out of 4 of the sisters all married Jews, so half the people know what they're saying, other people are just kind of humming along.
3 out of the 4 first-generation Norwegian Minnesota sisters married Jewish men.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
So on the one hand, that's half of you, and the other half is this New Jersey-born Jewish father.
Yeah, and I went to Hebrew school. I was bat mitzvahed. I call myself a jewegian, so it's the combination, right, of Scandi and Jewish. And it was one of those things growing up where I had such a big family on my mom's side, and there wasn't a lot of family in my life as present on my Jewish side. So my mom actually was the one who said, I think you should go get a bat mitzvah. And I was like, no, I don't want to do more school. But what it did, and I thank her for this now, is that it really taught me about the Jewish side of myself. And I'm very grateful for that, even if I didn't want to go on Saturdays and Wednesdays to, study more and do this whole undertaking of the bat mitzvah. But I appreciate it, and it's good to know where you come from, especially with such a history as that. So you
living inside of you, are these extreme archetypes. Like when you talk about writing into archetypes, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
You kind of represent a few of them yourself. The Minnesota, Norwegian American vibe, that's like that's a thing. I have a really good friend who's a great singer-songwriter from Minneapolis who married a Norwegian, and her wedding was hilarious because half of them were Minnesota Norwegians and half of them were Norwegian Norwegians. And the Norwegians were like very European, very cool, and the Minnesotans, who were maybe 2 generations removed from the original thing, had a slightly distorted vision of what Norwegian culture really looks like
Yeah,
and is.
probably.
It
Yeah.
sounds like you had you're closer to the source.
I think it was close to, yeah, because of my grandmother.
Yes.
So, she was born there, came here, and she's a very elegant woman. She's still alive. She's 96, and she's a wonderful, witchy person, I have to say, and witchy in the best sense, like, a good witch. She sniffs out people so fast that you kind of make your head spin.
Do you think you felt a certain familiarity with that disposition working in Sweden? I know Swedes and Norwegians are not the same, but was there something familiar about it?
Yes, very much. The bread that will break the wall that you can throw. And yes, I mean, I think also the kind of pastoral beauty of the landscape, and it was very familiar to me. There was something kind of homey about that as well.
Yeah.
I understand that personality as well. It's close to home.
What is that personality?
Well, I don't want to say too much here. There is something quite buttoned up about Scandinavians,
Yes.
right? Until they start drinking. So, I mean, I've come across this a lot, in my time in Scandinavia. And sometimes people won't speak to you for a while. And then all of a sudden you realize that they've loosened up, they've had their first cocktail, and things can start getting a little looser. Working with Tor, we certainly did a lot of boxed wine drinking.
They have like a real limit on what they can buy there, though, right? Or it's very expensive or highly taxed, or it's like you can only buy so much at a time. Or
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. I mean, I didn't feel like there were any limitations when I was there. I mean, I certainly felt like I had my fill of everything. But yeah, I think, Tor is a very reserved person, but he's very funny, and he kind of comes out with things that you don't expect him to say either. And he can hang, he's a good hang, and he's a good, person in that way. But yeah, there is a kind of, again, we're talking about archetypes. There is this kind of idea of the archetypal, Scandinavian. Yeah, little severe, and not much dialogue.
Right. And then on the other hand, you have this sort of East Coast Jew, right?
And I definitely was a big personality coming into a quiet farmhouse.
Right.
I realized that it was greatly appreciated, actually. I think Tor's friend goes, "Oh, we finally have some sunshine." And I was like, "Yeah, New York is here. Like, here I come."
But that's the interesting thing about Sweden, right? Like, because they must be lacking in actual sunshine, and yet this is the musical culture that brought us everything from ABBA to
really happy music.
Max Martin hits,
Yeah, I think that people can get quite depressed with these severe, especially when there's no light. I think that's quite depressing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably a good time to do some introspective self-reflection.
Yeah.
Sophie Auster, thank you for doing some introspective self-reflection with me today.
I hope it was okay.
Congratulations on your record.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
There she was, Sophie Auster. I'll be back soon with another great conversation. Until then, I'll talk to you soon.